Today, I am in a cozier location than usual because I wanted to talk about one of the best books that I've read so far this year, and probably one of the best books that I've read ever, and that is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And I am not introducing the world to a brand new book that nobody's ever heard of. East of Eden is well renowned for a reason. This is one of the most powerful American novels ever written. It's about good, it's about evil, and ultimately it is about choice and what you make yourself and who decides what you are. This book, I thrifted it long before I read it, and I let it sit on my shelf for a long time because I knew that I had to wait until I had the heart, the time, and the energy to really devote myself to this book, because I knew that it was going to be a book that I would love very much, and I was right. This is going to be a spoiler-free review because I'm trying to convince anybody who hasn't yet read this book to read this book. So if you don't know what East of Eden is about, it is set in California, in this Salinas Valley, California, and it is set kind of at the turn from the 19th to the 20th century, and it is set primarily around these two key families, and that is the Trasks and the Hamiltons. The Hamiltons is largely set around one man, the father of the family, Samuel Hamilton, and he is, I will get into this later when I talk more about the character work, but Sam Hamilton is one of the most charismatic characters I think I've ever read about before. Like, he simply breathes and bleeds off these pages. He is, like, and he's somebody that you just have to like, and all of the characters in this story, like, you can just tell that they, are captured by this Sam Hamilton and the way that he strings words together and the way that he presses through life. He's so real. He's so, like, raw. Wonderfully written character. And then the Trasks. And this family is a bit more brute, but you'll see as you read it. But largely, this story is a retelling of the Cain and Abel story from the Bible. Now, you don't really need to know that story going into this, because Steinbeck does kind of feed you the information as you need it, but if you already do know that story, or if you read it ahead of time, it probably would enrich your understanding of the point a little bit more. But that is the overall general setting and purpose of the story. So the thing that is most notable about this work is the character writing. The way that Steinbeck can write about characters in such a scant way or in such a descriptive way, because, somehow Steinbeck can use so few words or so many words to write these incredibly realistic characters that really leave an impact on you long after you close the last page. Like Kathy, for example. That is probably the most chilling character that Steinbeck could have possibly created. And she kind of just serves as a symbol of evil and what not to do. But in a way, you still kind of find yourself rooting for her, or at least waiting for her to do something big next so that you can just see the way her mind works. Incredibly interesting. Or Lee, for example, who is a Chinese-American servant for the Trask family. And he's also, like I was talking about earlier with Samuel Hamilton, Lee is just one of those characters that you just, like, how could you not absolutely love the way that he speaks, the way that he thinks, the way that he imagines scenarios? Lee, incredibly powerful. And he's kind of at the novel's, like, moral center, or like the philosophy that drives this book forward. If you've ever heard anybody talk about this book, you've heard them say Tim Shell or thou mayest, and that was a quote that Lee brought about. And that is the most powerful theme of this story. So Lee is incredibly integral to the story, even though, he's just some servant of the family. But again, I mean, he's written about in a way that is so unbelievably human and raw. Or Cal Trask, for example. He is the Cain illusion in this story. He's intelligent and he's dark, but he's insecure. he's one of the most like complex characters here, because even though you know that this is a Cain and Abel retelling, and if you do know, Cain kills Abel, but it comes about in a way that you just don't really expect or don't really, I don't know, even though you know that Cal is supposed to kill his brother, you don't wish ill against Cal whatsoever. Again, you're rooting for him. Like, it's the thing about with these characters is whether they're good, whether they're bad, they're all so very human and so very real, and you're rooting for every single one of them, even though some of their motives are a bit more evil than others. But in the end, all of these characters are so fleshed out, and I think that that's what Steinbeck does really, really well with this work. So as I was saying a moment ago, the main theme of this story rests around this quote of "Thou mayest," or Tim Shell. And basically at the heart of this, it's you have free will. You have choice. What you are born in does not define who you are. The actions that you push forth aren't written for you. You create them. It's all about choice. You don't have to be what people expect you to be. You are your own person and you draw your own path. So where this "thou mayest" comes from is whenever Lee, the Chinese servant that I was talking about a moment ago, whenever Lee is reading the story of Cain and Abel, he really focuses on the translation of what God says after Cain offers him his offering. So different translations of the Bible put this differently and therefore have a different meaning on what your take on the story can be. Some say that it is "thou shalt rule over it," so you will conquer sin. Others say, "do thou rule over it," so you must conquer sin. But what Lee argues is that he consults some Hebrew scholars, and their take on it is Tim Shell, which translate to "thou mayest rule over it." So the ball is in your court. Whether you rule over sin, whether you let sin rule over you, it is not written in the stars, so thou mayest, right, draw your own path. So you're not doomed to sin like fate might expect of you. You're not commanded to be good as, a rule or a command might say, but you are given the choice, and that choice is ultimately what makes us human. We have the choice to draw forth our actions. So basically the way that this draws in the story is Cal believes that he's destined to be evil because he just has this overall demeanor of just intelligent, sickening darkness, and he believes that is likely stemming from his mother, she's outright evil. But "thou mayest" gives him the choice to not be evil because he doesn't have to be what is expected of him based on his bloodline. "Thou mayest" allows him to break away from the expectations of who his mother is and what he should become based on that fact. So basically what Steinbeck here is saying is that, you don't have to be bound by your heritage or your bloodline or your expectations. You have agency to be who you are, who you want to be, and whatever version of yourself that you believe is most you have the agency to do so. It's not written in the stars. So in the end, you're not defined by your darkness, you're defined by what you choose to do with it. It's an incredibly powerful thematic work, and just, wow, super impactful. So the last thing that Steinbeck really, really does well, and I've noticed this in his shorter works that I've also read, is that his power with words is incredible. He can be at times incredibly lyrical, like especially when describing this valley and how it just breathes and grows and lives. His wording is incredibly lyrical, incredibly flowery and beautiful, but at other times he can write in a way that is really concise, and that conciseness is equally as powerful as the, beauty of his other work. So he really can capture all values of prose. Steinbeck really can do it all. And I think that that's why this book is so well loved by so many people, because you don't have to be a well-seasoned reader to understand what's going on in here, and you don't have to be super intelligent to, kind of piece together the purpose of the story. Like, it's super philosophical without being preachy about it, and the writing is incredibly accessible to anybody who is trying to read. So anybody who's trying to get into reading, I really think that this is an incredibly powerful place to start, because it's not very difficult and it's incredibly impactful on your life. So this is the type of book that will leave a really large impact on you, from the writing, from the characters, from, the philosophical standpoints. Just overall, the writing in here can really capture anybody who decides to pick it up. I can't imagine anybody not absolutely loving this story. So overall, that is my review of East of Eden. I just wanted to talk about, kind of what I think this book does so very well. And this book really does do everything so very well. This is definitely one of the most well-written books probably ever. But I've talked about this book a lot on the internet before on my TikTok page with the same username. But I haven't yet talked about it on YouTube, so I very much just wanted to post a singular video talking about one of the greatest books ever written, one of the greatest books I've ever read, and one of the greatest books that is definitely going to stay with me for a very long time. So thank you for watching, and if you haven't yet, please read this book, and if you have read this book already, go pick it back up and reread it. But comment your thoughts if you have read this book before. I really do like hearing what other people think about this book, because there's so many little things in this story that you can pick out that maybe I didn't pick up on, or maybe other people watching this video didn't pick up on. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next weekend.